Have you ever had one of those conversations that you replay over and over in your head? Maybe you regret what you said, or worse, what you didn't say. Years ago, when I was still sailing, I had to give critical feedback to my chief engineer. And I was a little nervous because I didn't want to damage our working relationship. So I hesitated. I delayed, making small talk whenever I saw him, and avoiding the real issue. Well, finally, I just had to come out and say it clearly, kindly as I could, and straight to the point. And instead of being upset, he was relieved. He told me, "I've been waiting for someone to give me straight feedback for months." So, difficult conversations, they're not about confrontation. They're about clarity, courage, and care. Just like tying this bow tie. Slow down, find your balance, and adjust gently. Tonight, we're going to explore how to navigate those tough talks in English confidently and a little compassionately. So let's dive in. Oh, and don't forget to stick around for tonight's Mastery Minute, where I'll share a simple 3-word phrase that turns tension into teamwork. Let's jump in. Oh, don't forget to ask your questions in the chat, and I'll answer them right at the end of the program. All right, let me tell you about my friend Carlos. Carlos has an amazing talent designing things at a major tech firm. He's very good at his job, but he's terrible at giving feedback, or at least he was. He would either avoid issues altogether or go in too harshly, leaving his teammates either confused or hurt. Well, one day, Carlos had to address a serious problem with a colleague's project that could jeopardize the team's deadline. So he and I practiced a few simple strategies, and he managed to give clear and supportive feedback. The result was he was, not Carlos, but his colleague was grateful and started to respect him more for his honesty. And that's when Carlos started to realize that it's not just what you say, but it's how you say it. So, how can we have conversations like Carlos did? Clear and supportive and impactful? Well, tonight we're going to explore 5 essential tools that will help you navigate any difficult conversation with confidence. Let's check them out with tool number 1. So, tool number 1 is simple. Start with an I statement. I. So instead of pointing fingers, express your perspective. And this is very useful because it shifts the focus away from blaming another person and focusing instead on your feelings and your experiences and your viewpoint. So this way you are reducing defensiveness. The other person doesn't have to defend themselves against your feedback. And this opens the door to constructive dialogue. So let me tell you a quick story about Priya. She's one of my coaching clients, and she was frustrated with her colleague for constantly interrupting her during meetings. She used to say, "Oh, you always cut me off." Well, that didn't really work because that just made her colleague get defensive, and the tension would go up. And so I started working with her on using I statements. So at their next meeting, Priya said, "I feel discouraged when I can't finish my thoughts." And that one sentence completely changed the mood. Her colleague paused and nodded and said, I didn't realize I was doing that. I'm sorry. See? So why does that work? Because it makes the colleague less defensive. Priya wasn't attacking, she was explaining how she felt. This creates space for understanding instead of conflicts. And it works in any kind of relationship, even a romantic relationship or with your kids. So instead of saying things like, "You're not listening to me," try, "I feel unheard when I share my ideas and don't get a response." Or instead of, "You don't respect deadlines," try, "I get anxious when deadlines are approaching or even pass without getting any updates from you." So these phrases will keep the conversation focused on impact instead of intention. So you're not attacking them. This makes it easier for the other person to stay open and for both of you to move forward without hurt feelings and things like that. All right. Tool number 2. Use soft modals. What is that? What are modals? Oh, well, when emotions start to run high, our words can either build a bridge or blow it up. And this is where soft modals come in. Soft modals are words like could, would, or might. These add some flexibility and a little extra respect to your speech, and they make your messages sound less like a demand and more like a conversation. Let me tell you about Jay. He was a team lead, he was a team lead at a fast-moving startup, and he was frustrated with a junior designer's slow pace. At first, Jay would say things like, "You need to finish this faster." The result, often the same: silence, resentment. So I convinced Jay to change his approach. He started saying, "Would it be possible?" See that modal verb? Would it be possible to go over the timeline together? Or could you walk me through what's slowing you down? This change opened up the change in the tone opens up space for dialogue. And look, it's not about being soft. It's about being smart. This is persuasive language. So, what can you say? Instead of, "You have to fix this," try, "Could we take a look at this together?" Or instead of, "You should know this by now," sounds a little impatient. Try, "Would it help to review this again together?" The difference is subtle, but it's powerful. So soft modals, they show collaboration instead of command, and that helps to create safer space for finding solutions. People will definitely respect you more if you're using that polite language. All right, tool number 3, focus on the facts. In the middle of a tense conversation, emotions tend to take the wheel, but facts, they can act like your seatbelt, okay? Because facts are neutral. They help you explain what happened without assigning blame or jumping to conclusions. So I had a manager that I coached named, we'll call her Ellen, and she felt that one of her employees wasn't pulling their weight. They weren't doing the fair share of work. Well, instead of saying, "You're lazy," we worked on this version. "I noticed that 3 assignments were submitted after the deadline in the past 2 weeks. Oh. Well, oops, getting ahead of myself there. And that got her attention. The employee didn't get defensive. He nodded, he acknowledged the delays, and explained what was going on. Why? Because Ellen didn't make it personal. She kept the conversation grounded in the facts. So, again, this comes down to not accusing people. You're just focusing on the facts. Example, instead of saying, "You're always late," try saying, Our last 3 meetings started 10 minutes behind schedule. Instead of saying, "You never follow through," say, "This is the second time the task was marked incomplete." Well, that's not good, right? Just the facts, as the old TV detective used to say. Facts actually help to reduce the heat in a situation, and they keep things on track. They give you something solid to work with, and it's not personal. It's just business. Okay. Tool number 4. Suggest a solution. Difficult conversations shouldn't end with silence. They should end with steps forward. So when you offer a possible solution, it shows that you're not just complaining, you're trying to collaborate. So what I liked, let's tell you a story. I had a client named Lydia who needed to address repeated miscommunications with a colleague. Instead of just saying, "You never understand what I'm asking for," she said, "Would it help if we review priorities together on Monday mornings?" Would it help? There's that modal verb. You're giving a solution to the problem. Or she said, "Would it help?" So you're offering a pathway to get things back on track. And it worked. The colleague agreed and miscommunication stopped. Why? Because she didn't just bring a problem. She brought a pathway to a solution. I used to do that when I was a manager or when I was a ship's officer and I had people working under me. I would say, "Don't come to me with a problem. Come to me with a solution to whatever your problem is." And my team worked very well together to turn those problems into solutions. So here's a couple of examples. You could say, "How about we check in midweek from now on?" If you got someone who's not working out or is not staying on track, just do a little check-in. Would using a shared checklist help us stay aligned? That's another good solution, good example. Because suggesting a solution turns conflict into collaboration. It means you're working together and makes you sound not only professional, but like a leader. And here's my favorite, one of my favorite ones. Be brief and clear. Brief. That means short. When conversations are emotionally charged, it's tempting to ramble and blah, blah, blah. But long explanations can confuse or even overwhelm the listener. So we call this keeping it simple. Keep your sentences short and clear. It helps your message to land and stick. So think of headlines, not essays. I had a client named Marcus who always over-explained during feedback sessions. He'd go on for 5 or 10 minutes sometimes trying to soften the message. But the longer he talked, the more awkward it felt. So he trimmed his message down to this: "I appreciate your effort." But the client was confused by the report layout. Let's review it together next time. One simple, and it worked out fine. Clarity helps you to build trust, all right? So for example, you might say, instead of a paragraph about why you're unhappy, just say, "I felt frustrated with how yesterday's handover was managed." There you go with that I statement from tool number 1. Instead of giving 10 reasons why there's a problem, say something like, "The delay impacted our timeline. I'd like us to plan earlier next time." This is incorporating a couple of things. You're offering a solution, you're sharing an I statement, and you're giving facts. Okay? Short doesn't mean rude. It just means clear. And clarity builds trust. Okay? All right, your challenge for this week is think about a difficult conversation you've been avoiding. Write out one I statement that you could use. Practice it out loud just a few times, and you might be surprised at how prepared you feel. Practice it. Give it a shot. And look, for more tips and examples, visit us at allaboutenglishmastery.com. You can get to the blog post, the original blog right there. The link is also in the description. And if you've got questions, if you're watching live right now, drop your questions in the chat. I'll answer as many as I can after the Mastery Minute. And don't forget to check out the English Mastery course as well. There's a link in the description for that. It's designed to help you grow your confidence, your communication skills in real-world situations using materials that you can access anytime you like. And, make sure I'm still on the line here. All right, next time we're on time for the Mastery Minute. And today's idiom is interesting. You may have heard this before. It is called bite the bullet. Bite the bullet. And no, you don't need to chew on metal for this. The phrase means to do something difficult or unpleasant that you've been avoiding. It comes from the old days when soldiers would literally bite on a bullet during surgery. Why did they do that? Because there was no anesthesia, no numbing, no painkillers. I mean, picture, you've got a battlefield medic covered in sweat and dust preparing a wounded soldier for surgery. No time, no medication. He hands over a bullet and says, "Bite down on this, son." That soldier bites and braces himself for the pain. That's the kind of strength that this idiom calls to mind. So, if you've been putting off a hard conversation, maybe with your boss, your partner, or your team, that moment when you finally take a breath and say, "We need to talk," that's when you bite the bullet. For example, you might say to your colleague, I didn't want to give my manager the bad news, but I had to bite the bullet and be honest. So try using this idiom the next time you face a tough decision. It's real gritty, visual, and instantly shows your listener that you're doing something tough on purpose. You decided to do it. Thank you for joining me. This was episode 39. Wow, almost on 40. Remember, difficult conversations handled well can become powerful connections. And if this episode helped you, please like, subscribe, and share with someone else who has to have difficult conversations from time to time. Next time, we are going to talk about how to craft an elevator pitch in just 60 seconds. So you can introduce yourself clearly, confidently, and memorably, whether you're at a networking event or a random elevator ride with your dream client. And until then, speak thoughtfully, and keep finding your voice. I will see you next Monday at 9:30 p.m. Korea Standard Time.